What is up, fellas? It is Saturday, which means we are tackling the running back tier list for the Week 7 fantasy football slate, going through my top 36 running back rankings, the injury reports, everything you guys should need to know to set your fantasy football lineups this week. Let's start with the running backs that are on bye. Bit of a lighter week on byes, just Rico Dowdle and DeAndre Swift, Roschon Johnson on bye, with those two teams being the only teams that are on bye in Week 7. The next section here is the injury report. Now, the injuries this week, there's a lot of them, but not a ton of guys are ruled out or not going to play because of it. So as I go through the tier list, I'll talk about like who's banged up and things of that nature. But as far as like players who are actually ruled out and not going to play this week, it is actually a very light week of running back injuries, and we should have a lot of good names deep into the like 20s and even 30s of the running back tier list. The only real major name that has been ruled out is Jonathan Taylor. He's been confirmed ruled out for the third straight week with the high ankle sprain he suffered a couple of weeks ago, which means that we're going to get some combination of Trey Sermon and Tyler Goodson at running back. Anthony Richardson is expected to start at quarterback, so we're going to see a little bit of a different backfield than what we've seen, because traditionally with JT's injury, we have not seen Richardson back there. We've only seen Joe Flacco start those games. We also have Rachaad White dealing with an injury. He has not been officially ruled in or out because they play on Monday, which means he has one more practice to go today. I do expect him to play because we already heard Liam Cohen come out and say that all three running backs, meaning Sean Tucker, Rachaad White, and Bucky Irving, which is kind of a giveaway that he's going to play, are going to get a series at the beginning of the game, and they're going to start to kind of ride the hot hand in this backfield, which, of course, as a Buccaneers fan is good news, I think, because we're going to get the best running back playing every single week. It's not going to be Rachaad White. We're going to force him 70% of the snaps. But for fantasy, it's going to be a complete headache, and we're going to have no idea how we actually want to talk about these guys from a fantasy perspective. And then we have some lower-level guys ruled out. Jerome Ford listed out with a hamstring injury. Nick Chubb actually making his debut without the incumbent starter before, which was Jerome Ford. So should be an interesting backfield to watch with Cleveland this week. And then also, too, Tajay Spears ruled out with a hamstring injury, which upgrades Tony Pollard. So like I said, we do have a lot of guys that are banged up who are not out for the game. They're questionable game time decisions. They are all pretty much expected to play, so I have included them in the tier list, but they are at risk of re-injury, and that is James Cook, not listed on the injury report with the turf toe. It's a painful injury, can re-aggravate it, so keep an eye on that. Jordan Mason, not listed on the injury report with a shoulder. I'm not overly concerned about his injury. Most of the fantasy docs I've seen have said he should be like 100%. After the 10 days of rest that he had because he played last Thursday. Devon Achane cleared the concussion protocol. He should be good. Travis Etienne, hamstring injury. He's been limited in practice all week, but he should be good to go in London for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Ramondre Stevenson, same thing. He's also playing in London. He is dealing with a foot issue. He practiced in a limited capacity on Friday, and he did make the trip to London, which makes me think that he is going to probably start and play a good percentage of the role there for the Patriots backfield. Of course, Drake May is going to be starting now, and he has not yet played with Drake May. Brian Robinson also dealing with a knee issue. It looks like he's going to end up going. He's been limited all week. And then Nick Chubb, first game of the season, listed questionable, but he is likely to play. So let's get into the locked-in running back starts, as we always do with running backs 1 to 12. We go through, talk about who has good matchups, bad matchups, high-scoring game environments. There is a couple guys I want to highlight as far as usage trends that we've seen, so I'll try and fire through these pretty quick. Elite running backs and good matchups, you guys can see them on the screen there. Tony Pollard, Kyron Williams, Devon Achane, Alvin Kamara, who already played, and Bijan Robinson. All of those guys have top 12 to 15 matchups, so they are in good spots to smash this week. Elite running backs who are in high-scoring games, you have Bijan and Walker in that Falcons-Seahawks 51-point over-under game. Both of those guys are in a great game environment. Derrick Henry on Monday night, 49.5-point over-under. Joe Mixon versus the Packers, 47.5 over-under. And then Jordan Mason versus Kansas City, a 47-point over-under game. And then some elite running backs who don't have the greatest matchups. You can see Saquon in the revenge game versus the Giants. I don't think the matchup's going to matter. He's probably going to be still very good. J.K. Dobbins, a tough matchup against the Arizona Cardinals. Breece Hall against the Steelers. Henry against the Buccaneers. He has traditionally not been very good against the Bucs when he was with the Titans. And then Jordan Mason against the Chiefs. That is the hardest matchup on the entire slate. So Like I said, I want to highlight some usage trends from some of these top guys. Kenneth Walker being the first. He is RB3 for me on the week. He is actually a top 5 running back now for me rest of season. A lot of people have been giving me shit in the comment section for ranking Kenneth Walker too low. I will admit defeat here. Kenneth Walker, 54% of the snaps and 36% of the routes in 2023. That was his average across the entire season. That has not been the case this year. His workload has improved dramatically. He's been over 60% of the snaps in pretty much every game, 66% on the season, 54% of the routes, which is a big time upgrade. And he went from a 7% target share last year to a 15% target share when he's been healthy this year. So it took me a while. I was a little bit stubborn with the whole Charbonnet eats into his workload thing, but I'm officially in. Kenneth Walker, definitely an elite running back rest of season. He is having a breakout season for sure. Breece Hall, running back 4 for me in my rankings. I did want to outline his usage because he got a usage uptick with the new play caller, Todd Downing, in there. 86% of the snaps for the week. I hope you guys bought Breece Hall last week when I pretty much screamed from the mountaintops that he was the best buy in all of fantasy. He is going to be an elite running back rest of the season. And honestly, I have him ranked 101 overall. If we redrafted today with the remainder of the season left to go, I would not take a single player over Breece Hall because now that this Jets offense has Devontae Adams to go along with Garrett Wilson, both of those guys are true alphas who can beat number 1 corners, demand coverage from a defense. Breece Hall is going to be in a really good spot to break away long runs, catch a lot of passes. He's top 5 in routes. He's top 5 in target rate based on the running back position. He is the biggest winner of this Devontae Adams move, in my opinion. It obviously affects Adams. His fantasy value ticks him a little bit up. It ticks Garrett Wilson's a little bit down, but I think it's just all up for Breece Hall because he's going to get more red zone opportunities. Hopefully the Jets offense can be more efficient going forward with Adams there now. Bijan Robinson is my RB6. I wanted to kind of outline what happened for him in week 6 because people are a little bit concerned. Bijan is the only running back in the NFL that could have 25.5 PPR points and people be worried about him because for some reason everybody's worried about Bijan all the time. Fellas, very simple explanation here. If you're worried about the fact that Bijan Robinson had 56% of the snaps and was out-carried by Tyler Algier last week, they were killing Carolina. They were destroying Carolina, and Tyler Algier got a majority of his touches in the late fourth quarter when the game was already over. That is where he racked up his touches, as you guys can see on this chart, courtesy of Hayden Winks over at Underdog. Don't be concerned about Bijan. He is going to be fine going forward. Breece and Bijan, huge buys coming into the week for me, and both of them had monster games in week 6, so feel pretty good about those guys. And then 2 quick notes on some other high-end RBs. We have Tony Pollard, RB8 for me. His usage spiked with no Tajay Spears, so keep that in mind this week. And then J.K. Dobbins, a newcomer to this top 12 tier. He's not usually in this range. With no Gus Edwards, his usage also spiked as far as a carry percentage. He is my RB12 this week against the Arizona Cardinals. So let's move into the actual tier list here. We go to the high-end RB2s tier. Chuba Hubbard is my RB13 on the week for me. He will get another week with the backfield to himself. Jonathan Brooks has been ruled out. It looks like next week will be his season debut, probably going to be a week or 2 before he gets fully up to speed and starts to command a full workload. Massive snap share for Chuba Hubbard in week 6. He has been a top 16 running back in every game that Andy Dalton has started. So if he's the starting running back, which he is this week, you put him into your lineup and you don't ask any questions. 51.5 point over under this week, over catching some steam with 80% of the cash in this Commanders game. The only concern you might have is that the Commanders run away with this one, and then Chuba Hubbard is taken off the field in the fourth quarter. But if they can keep this game close, I feel really good about their chances to put up points. Rushed for at least 90 yards in 4 straight games, so I like the 70.5 rushing yard total over on Underdog Fantasy's higher, and then I am going to be building out a Underdog Pick'em entry throughout this video. So if you guys want to tail it, of course, link down below in the pinned comment. Running back 14 for me and 15, they play for the same team, so I'll just group them together, is David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. Usually, they're fixtures of the top 12 tier, but the Minnesota Vikings are 4th against fantasy running backs in adjusted fantasy points allowed to that position. Both of these guys would be higher if they didn't have a terrible matchup. Montgomery will likely suffer efficiency-wise on the ground against such a strong run defense, but in a 50.5 point over-under game, he is probably going to find the end zone because that's what he does. Jahmyr Gibbs, on the other hand, has a chance to catch some passes this week. Without Aiden Hutchinson, the Lions defense is likely going to give it up to the Minnesota Vikings, let them score a lot of points. The Vikings defense ranks 5th in targets per game allowed to the running back position. So an interesting kind of nugget for the matchup this week is that Jahmyr Gibbs could catch a lot of passes. They've allowed 7 targets per game, like I said, which is the 5th highest among the NFL. So I actually like Jahmyr Gibbs to go higher than his 75.5 rushing plus receiving yardage total. I believe he would have gone over this in every game this season except for 1. So I feel pretty good about that. Running back 16 for me is James Cook. The Tennessee Titans are a pretty good run defense and a very good defense overall. Cook was not listed on the final injury report with the turf toe. Again, it is a painful injury, so he could re-aggravate it. Both Thursday and Friday, he was a full participant in practice, but like I said, this injury can be one that re-aggravates itself because it's very painful, so I have downgraded him here in the rankings, in addition to the fact that the Titans matchup is very hard. I mean, the fewest yards per team play allowed in the NFL right now are the Tennessee Titans defense. They're very good against the pass. They're very good against the run. They're just a hard team to move the football against, and we saw the Joe Flacco Colts really struggle against that last week, and the Colts obviously had a monster game the week prior, so it could be tough sledding for the Bills offense. Running back 17 for me here is Josh Jacobs. The Houston Texans are third against fantasy running backs. He's getting a great workload. Josh Jacobs managers are probably a little frustrated with him right now because you haven't seen the big weeks yet. You haven't seen him pop off for a 30-point game. Remember that A.J. Dillon is out for the year, and Marshawn Lloyd has pretty much been out all season as well. So the run out for Josh Jacobs as far as how good he should be right now versus how good he actually is, I would say has been a little bit disappointing. He is RB20 right now in PPR, 11.9 PPR points per game. If you told me going into the season that A.J. Dillon was going to be out for the year, Marshawn Lloyd wouldn't really be playing at all coming into the year, I probably would have drafted Josh Jacobs at the tail end of the second round. And this matchup is bad. He hasn't been overly great so far. Again, he's been decent from a real football standpoint. But when you look at the fantasy numbers, he just hasn't been getting the targets, hasn't been getting the red zone work. That's been going, through Jordan Love in the passing game and stuff. So you're hoping for a touchdown out of Josh Jacobs this week, but the targets and the efficiency haven't necessarily been there. I'm tempted to put him even a little bit lower than this, but I feel like I have to respect the offense and the matchup and the game environment where the Texans and Packers game could really shoot out. So that's why I have him at 17, but I definitely could argue he should be lower than that. Running back 18 for me is Ramondre Stevenson, closing out the high-end RB2s tier. The Jacksonville Jaguars are 30th against fantasy running backs. They allowed DeAndre Swift to go wild last week. I discussed Ramondre on the running back buys video on Wednesday, and the reason I like Ramondre Stevenson as a buy, it's for a number of reasons, but I just think Drake May elevates the play of this offense primarily, and Stevenson has been pretty decent when he's been given good opportunity. Jacksonville giving it away to the running back position. Like I said, they're 30th against the run, 4th in total targets allowed to running backs. Ramondre is going to play, in my opinion. He traveled to London. He practiced in a limited capacity on Friday. If he was going to be out, he wouldn't have gone to London in the first place. If they thought he wasn't going to play, he wouldn't have taken the flight to begin with. So that's where I'm at with Ramondre Stevenson. He should play, and he is probably even potentially a little bit too low in my rankings given how good this matchup is. Moving into the low-end RB2s here, you see James Conner against the Chargers, 16th ranked against fantasy running backs. He was banged up in the second half of last week's game against the Green Bay Packers. He never really looked right throughout the entire game, but they were getting blown out. So I think it was just a minor injury. James Conner hasn't been, limited in practice to any degree all week. And DeMercado was the, when we're losing, we put this guy in the backfield. And Kyler and the Cardinals were getting killed last week. So that's probably what happened. This week, it's a brutal East Coast killer, 9 p.m. Eastern kickoff on Monday night against the Chargers. He's not on the injury report. League average matchup should be kind of business as usual for James Conner, but just perked my ears up a little bit, and I talked about him as a sell high because if he's starting to get banged up, that would be a concern for me. I want to sell him before he's banged up, go and pick up and stash Trey Benson in the meantime because I think he would be very good if James Conner missed any time. Running back 20 for me is Brian Robinson. As I talked about, coming into the game questionable. 32nd ranked running back defense are the Carolina Panthers. Limited practice all week, though, for Brian Robinson, which usually means that a player is going to suit up and play. Of course, if anything changes, I will drop it in the pinned comment. That applies for any of these injured players. The only reason I don't have him higher, because again, the matchup is literally the best in the entire slate, I expect this backfield to be a little bit split. That's the reason I don't have him higher, because Eckler has been solid. He commanded a big workload last week, and Brian Robinson is coming off of that injury. So very good matchup for both guys. I have them both in my top 24. Spoiler alert on Eckler, but I can't put either of them really, really high because I think it's going to be a little bit of a split backfield. Normally, if we get Brian Robinson like weeks 1 to 4 workload, I would probably have him inside my top 12 or at least very close to it. But I'm a little worried he might see a downgrade in terms of workload this week, like we saw from him in week 5 before he missed week 6's game. So Aaron Jones is my RB21. Detroit is second against fantasy running running backs. Very, very good defense against the run. Yet another injury question mark. We all thought, at least I did, that Aaron Jones would be out for a number of games after suffering the hip pointer hamstring injury that he suffered before the bye. I guess it was enough time for him to recover, and Ty Chandler pickups, kind of went to waste. But Aaron Jones is probably going to play. I think there's a very good chance he plays. It looks like he's going to play according to the team. He had a limited practice Friday, limited practice on Thursday. Brutal matchup with a high injury risk as well. If you guys hold Ty Chandler, I wouldn't drop him yet. It is possible that Aaron Jones re-aggravates this thing, and we know he's a near 30-year-old running back. If he re-aggravates a hamstring pull, that's going to be curtains on his production for the rest of the season, because he'll probably be out for 4, 5, 6 games or something if he were to re-aggravate this thing. A fully healthy Aaron Jones has been a borderline RB1, but as of now, he's a very risky back-end RB2 for me on this week in a bad matchup. It's a high-scoring game, but the Lions defense very good at stopping the run. We'll see if that changes with Aiden Hutchinson gone, but I still think they're going to be pretty good at stopping and shutting down Aaron Jones. So running back 22 for me in my rankings is Kareem Hunt. 49ers are 19th against fantasy running backs and adjusted fantasy points allowed. Kareem Hunt posted a top 5 week before the Chiefs bye. Great news, obviously, if you have Kareem Hunt, if you picked him up or whatever the case is, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire is eligible to come off of the non-football injury list with the mental health issues that he's been working through. He is going to suit up this week. He is going to play. How does that affect this backfield? Does he take away early down work? Does he take away Samaje Perine's role? The matchup isn't ideal either. The 49ers are pretty good run defense, but the over-under is up there with a 47-point total. Temper expectations for Kareem Hunt, but still a solid back-end RB2. Chase Brown is the next guy we're going to talk about here. Running back 23 for me in my rankings. Chase Brown, 14th ranked run defense are the Cleveland Browns. Season high, 62% of the snaps last week. He outsnapped, he outcarried, he ran more routes, and he got more targets than Zach Moss for the first time all season long. He has never really been competing for that kind of workload with Zach Moss. It's pretty much been Zach Moss, and then he gets whatever left over. Long down and distance, 2-minute drill work. It looks like that is still going to go to Moss because they trust him more in pass protection. But against the Browns, they're 6-point favorites. Very good chance that this is a run-heavy game script, so I like Chase Brown to get a lot of rushing yards in this one. You guys can see there, I like the higher on his 50.5-point rushing yardage total, and that will round out our pick'em that we've built out so far. If you guys want to tail this 4 pick'em entry over on Underdog, this would 10x if it ends up hitting. You can sign up using promo code FSE, link down below in the pinned comment and in the description. You get up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you use that promo code FSE. You get this Aaron Rodgers free square that you could add in as a new customer. They also have Profit Boost tokens live right now. You can also get our weekly start sit rankings for free, which means quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, all the matchup charts, all the Vegas information. If you add the Aaron Rodgers Pick'em free square to this entry, it would 20x your original money. If you put in $10, you'd win $200. Underdog has a new mode too, now called Red Zone Rush, where you dating app sickos can feel right at home, where you basically just swipe right and swipe left on picks that you like or picks that you dislike, and you can build out an entry that way. You can do it for running backs, you can do it for wide receivers. Again, check that out. Link for Underdog is down below in the pinned comment. Shout out to them for sponsoring our channel. Moving on to running back 24 in my rankings, closing out this low-end RB2s range is Austin Eckler. I kind of already made reference to the matchup. I don't really need to talk about it anymore. Carolina stinks against the run. Eckler has been consistently above 10 PPR points all season long. As you guys can see, he has never had below 10 PPR points. So if you're looking for a floor play, if you're looking for a guy that maybe breaks off a long, screen pass or whatever, I think Austin Eckler could have a good game in this one because, like I said, Brian Robinson coming off of the injury in week 5, when that was the case, he only played 32% of the snaps, and Eckler was more involved, and same was the case in week 6 when he was actually out with the injury. We saw Eckler more involved as well. So 51.5-point over-under game. I just want pieces of this game environment, and Eckler is one of them. Into the flex place here, we have Najee Harris. Usage really changed for him last week, despite the big game that he had. He had 20.2 PPR points. I would look to sell him high if you can, because Jaylen Warren is finally healthy, as we've known for years. Jaylen Warren is better than Najee Harris, and he will probably start to work in more to this backfield, spell trouble for Najee Harris's big workload. So the running backs likely see a bump with Russell Wilson starting in this backfield, as opposed to Justin Fields, who, of course, is going to take away some rushing work and potentially some goal line stuff. So I feel pretty good that the Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren backfield is on the up because of Russell Wilson starting. But at the same time, I'm buying low on Jaylen Warren and probably selling high on Najee Harris, because anytime these two guys have been healthy, it's pretty much been like 55 Najee, 45 Jaylen, and Warren is obviously more efficient with his touches. So running back 26 for me, locked in, was Javonte Williams. Of course, he had a monster game, and 26 looks like a laughable ranking at this point. 20 26.1 PPR points. I hope you started him, but you probably didn't, knowing Javonte Williams' history so far this year. The Saints were 25th against the run coming into the game, and obviously Javonte Williams had a monster week. So if you started him, great news on you. If you did not start him, I don't really blame you because he wasn't very good to start the season. Running back 27 for me is Nick Chubb. First game all season I've been able to say Nick Chubb's name. Cincinnati is 12th against fantasy running backs. I would say that you should send some offers for Nick Chubb at this point in time. We have not seen Nick Chubb in 13 months since he tore his ACL in week 2 against the Steelers on Monday Night Football last year. No Jerome Ford. He is out. That is good news for Nick Chubb. I think he has a chance to get a decent workload even in his first game. I would not be shocked if he showed us in his first game back that he is the same guy that we always saw. And again, I'm not really banking on that because this is a serious injury. He's older, but Nick Chubb might just be built different. I wouldn't be shocked if he comes out, has 18 carries for 110 yards against the Bengals. The Browns have traditionally played the Bengals very close as well, so that would be an interesting development, but I think if you wanted to get Nick Chubb as like a throw-in for a trade, you might have yourself a decent running back if he comes back and produces. So running back 28 for me is Tank Bigsby. 22nd are the New England Patriots against the run. I have zero clue how to handle this backfield because Travis Etienne, of course, has been the lead back all season. On one hand, he is usually getting the workload, but he is also banged up with a hamstring injury, even though he's been practicing in a limited capacity all week. He's been the guy. He gets the workload traditionally. However, Etienne is banged up. Bigsby has been better this year, so ultimately, I think that the workload will be relatively split evenly, and I want the guy who's been better, which is Tank Bigsby. That is running back 28 for me in my rankings. Running back 29 for me in my rankings is Bucky Irving, another backfield that is just putting me in a complete bind. As a Bucs fan, like I said, I think I like the fact that we're going to run a hot hand approach, but as a fantasy manager and a fantasy player, I don't like it because all three of these guys have unique skill sets, which means they're probably going to fit well in a committee. You have Bucky Irving, the elusive back. He can make you miss in a phone booth. You have Sean Tucker, the hammer with breakaway speed. You have Rachaad White, the pass catcher, who's good in pass protection. Like, they're going to use these guys interchangeably going forward, in my opinion. If I had to start one, it would be Bucky Irving this week because White is coming off of an injury, maybe banged up. Sean Tucker, obviously, as a UDFA, he hasn't really worked into the backfield too much until last week. So I would start Bucky Irving as RB1 in this backfield. If you can avoid this backfield for a game just to see how it plays out, hopefully we see like a close game between the Ravens and Bucs and we get an idea for how this backfield looks. Of course, if Rachaad is out, then obviously Bucky Irving goes up and Sean Tucker would come up as well. But as of right now, it looks like Rachaad White is going to play based on Liam Cohen's comments. So he's a low-end RB2 in this tier. Running back 30 in my rankings is Tyrone Tracy. Brian Daboll, head coach of the Giants, came out and said that Tyrone Tracy has earned more work. So that's great news. But what does that mean? Does that mean that he's the starter, or does that mean it's a 50-50 split? Singletary was a workhorse to start the year. He was commanding 72% of the snaps through the first 4 games, and the last 2 games, Tyrone Tracy has been 62% and 84% respectively. So this is another backfield where I'm hoping we get a close game, and let's just see how it plays out. If you don't have to start one of these guys, don't, because I really don't know what is going to happen. Unless we get some report that says, yeah, Tracy's the lead back now, I probably wouldn't start him at this point in time because it looks like Singletary is going to play, and I would imagine it's going to be close to a 50-50 split unless we see some kind of development happen during the game or before the game or whatever the case is. So moving into the deep league flex plays, and generally speaking, this tier is a lot better than it usually is because we only have 2 bye weeks. A lot of running backs have come back from injury. Running back 31 for me in my rankings is Alexander Mattison. Unsure if Zamir White is going to play. I think he probably will, but Madison has been good workload-wise as of late, and you could definitely argue I have him too low based on his workload and what he produced last week, but it's a bad offense. No Adams, no Myers. Zamir White, if he plays, throws a wrench into this whole thing. So I have Madison at 31, but you could make the argument to put him a little bit higher than this. I'm just a little bit concerned. Running back 32, speaking of gross, we have Trey Sermon here. 24th rated matchup are the Miami Dolphins, so it's a better matchup than last week for sure. I would go back to the well on Trey Sermon of the 2 Indianapolis Colts running backs. The reason for that is the fact that the Indianapolis Colts are favored in a much easier rushing matchup than the Tennessee Titans. Even though Trey Sermon scored 2.9 fantasy points last week, he had 18 carries, 2 of them were inside the 5-yard line. That is startable volume, even if Tyler Goodson's better than Trey Sermon and has 5 to 10 looks better efficient touches. The Dolphins are allowing the fewest targets to running backs of any team in the NFL, so I don't think Goodson plus Richardson is starting. So he's not as likely to check the ball down to Tyler Goodson and Trey Sermon as the, in between the tackles grinder. Anthony Richardson being back there actually helps him out efficiency-wise, which was his problem last week. So I do think he has a chance to bounce back. Again, I don't feel great about it. I have to start him in our flock league because I'm totally screwed at running back too right now, but I'm kind of just coping a little bit and saying that, Sermon will get the work, so that's why I'm starting him. Running back 33, we have Tyler Algier, high-scoring game. He salted the game away last week for the Falcons. Good for an efficient 8 to 15 touches per game. You guys know what to expect out of Algier at this point. Running back 34, Travis Etienne. I don't fucking know what to do with this guy, man. Get your shit together. His usage, obviously, when healthy, is good, but I have Tank higher. It's a good matchup. We'll see what happens. Again, if you don't have to start a Jags running back, don't. Running back 35, I have Sean Tucker. Again, if you don't have to start a Buccaneers running back, don't. But I'm going to take Liam Cohen at his word. I think what is going to happen, like he said, is they're all going to get a series to start the game. And if I was betting money on who would look the worst on their starting series, it would be Rachaad White because he's the worst of the 3 running backs. So Bucky Irving, to me, would look the best on his first series. And then Sean Tucker probably looks the second best. So if he's going to ride the hot hand, we'll have to wait and see what happens. Again, if you do not have to start a Buccaneers running back, don't. But it is a 49.5 point over-under, even despite the bad matchup. So I'm intrigued enough that I could take a risk on it if you guys were feeling lucky or feeling ballsy. Running back 36, closing out this video, is Devin Singletary. Again, I have no idea if he's going to resume his big workload. I don't think he will. I think Tracy will be more involved. The question is, how involved is he? Is Tracy the lead back? Is Singletary the lead back? No idea what to expect going forward. Devin Singletary is like the condom of fantasy running backs. You hope you don't need him if you're, a fantasy manager or a head coach of an NFL team. But if you're, young, exciting rookie isn't producing, like Tyrone Tracy in this position, you could probably go back to Singletary, no problem, and he would be a consistent, reliable running back for you. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But again, if you guys enjoyed this video, if I helped you set your running back lineup, leave a like down below, subscribe to the channel if you are new around here. The pick'em that we built out throughout this video, again, is on the screen right now. If you guys do want to check out Underdog Fantasy, the link down below is there. Promo code FSE gets you up to $1,000 in bonus cash. This Aaron Rodgers free pick, our weekly start-sit rankings for free, and you also get to play this fun new Tinder-style swipe right, swipe left type of game over on Underdog. They're always innovating. They're the absolute best out there, so definitely check them out if you haven't already done so. The easiest, the funnest, the most simple way to play DFS this season. So check out Underdog Fantasy if you're interested. Like, comment, subscribe down below. But with that being said, peace out, and we'll talk to you soon.